Hey everybody, welcome to our monthly live stream. My name is Bobby Umar. I am the founder of the TLB Club, which is a membership community designed to help people uh, launch their business, grow their business, whether it's a side hustle, consulting, help with digital content, your voice, personal branding, speaking, programs, funnels, strategies, mindset, confidence. If you're an entrepreneur that feels lonely, wants a safe place, wants to access resources, feel overwhelmed, don't know the tech tools and the AI, and you need people who can help you guide you along the way, check out our club with the QR code. And we do a monthly live stream where I interview some of the awesome people I know in my network. And today's topic is actually kind of fun because I think Melody kind of inspired it, and so we're really excited to have this conversation. So, with that, I'm going to encourage you guys all to again share comments in the chat box. Like, tell us where you're from, what's your questions for us. Do you have specific things you want to ask us? You totally can. We definitely love questions. We love people who want to ask the question about this. So we'll start with a bit of introductions. Melody, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so thank you for having me, Bobby. It's awesome to be here with you and with everyone else here. Say hi so we know to shout you out. I have been an executive coach for going on 14 years now. I've worked with clients at top companies, you name it. And my background is originally as a therapist. So this idea of setting boundaries, setting limits is very close to my heart. And now I am the author of 2 books. My first book is called Trust Yourself. And my new book that comes out in a little less than 2 weeks is called Managing Up: How to Get What You Need from the People in Charge.
Okay, and for me, guys, I'm a motivational speaker by trade. For the last 20 years, I've done 1,000 keynotes and workshops across 4 continents. I'm a 5-time TEDx speaker and a 3-time TEDx rejecter. And so mostly what I've been talking about as a speaker has been about leadership, thought leadership, digital influence, personal branding, culture and community, and things like that. And then I also help people land a TEDx talk guaranteed to help elevate your thought leadership brand and your personal brand. So the topic today is about, and let me get the topic in here because I love sharing this one. Here we go. The topic today is how to say no without being a jerk. Anyone can relate to that because we all have these challenges. People ask questions all the time, and I'm hoping to hear some of your questions in the chat box. Make sure you share stuff because I think it's going to be really awesome. But let's start with um, I guess I want to start with the inspiration behind the topic. Melody, why don't you tell us a bit about that? What inspired the topic? Because you and I were chatting, and future Kane hopefully is going to join us later. But where did the inspiration come for this topic as we were like trying to reflect on this?
Yeah, I think this is a perennial struggle, whether you do a lot of the people I work with are in corporate traditional roles, but a lot of the people I work with own their own companies or doing their own things or entrepreneurs and business owners like you and I. And saying no, no matter what your work situation is, it's difficult, right? Because if you work in an organization or on a team of any kind, you want to be a team player. You want to be collaborative and don't want to be perceived as difficult. And when you work for yourself, it's totally different story. You want to capitalize on the opportunities that are in front of you, and it can feel like you have FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. If I don't say yes to this, well, what could have happened, what could have been, and I should be grateful for something that's coming my way. And so it's really difficult to say no because we worry about losing face, our reputation, about people being upset with us or thinking we're difficult, not coming back to us in the future. So I think all of those dynamics and the emotions around it just make it really difficult for people to tackle.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? I think I'm gonna share a story, and if you have a story too about the early days and how it was hard, so I'm gonna share a story with you guys. So I started as a speaker, and when you start as a speaker, typically there's a lot of free stuff you're doing too, which is fine. And I worked with my mentor to come up with my pricing, and then what do I do for free? How do I charge all that kind of stuff? And
Mhm.
eventually, what happened is my price started to go up, and then there's a
Yep.
lower end, and then it's like, what will you do for free? And once my price got high enough um, you have to think about these things. But typically, I'm a very yes person. I'm very "Hell yeah, let's do it. Yes, let's. I'm really big on that. But I remember the first time I really said no, and my mentor had told me at the time, like, Bobby, there's going to be a point where you're going to say, I really don't want to do this. And you have to figure out a way around that. And you have to be willing to say no. And I use the example of, was it Linda Evangelista said, I don't get out of bed for less than 10,000 a day. I was like, okay, what is my barrier for this? And the story is that several years later into my speaking career, someone came to me and they said, we want you to do a workshop on personal branding, and it's going to be 3 hours, but they wanted me to customize things. Now, because it was 3 hours long and because I had to customize stuff, I was like, man, and the price point was, hey, future, I'm just telling a story. And the price point was $1,700. And I was like, man, that seems like a lot of work. And I felt bad saying it but I was like, man, I'm not sure I want to do this. And I hemmed and hawed, and I finally asked my mentor. He's like, my speaker, I said, Bobby, like, if you don't want to do this, you either say no or you find a way to pass it on to somebody else and make a benefit. So what I did was I gave it to a colleague of mine and branded under my company name, and I took 25% and I gave him the rest.
Nice.
And but even now I don't do that anymore, because honestly, you have to have the right person, and it's branding, and just take the referral. It's fine, just go. So I said no that first time in my speaking business. It was very transformative for me to understand what that was. So Future's here. So Future, let's start with it. We already introduced ourselves. So Future, please go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, my name is Future Kane. I am the CEO and founder of the Future of SEL. I like to call myself an ambassador for humanity. Why I offer many different services, I am just trying to optimize the human potential for everybody on earth.
Awesome. And maybe you can tell us, since I was kind of telling a story, do you have a story or a memory of maybe one of the first times you either struggled to say no, or the first time you said no and it kind of illuminated you? I'd love to hear that story.
A story. Okay, I can't remember. I won't give you like a first, because I don't know if I could.
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
I could apply it to this platform, to be quite honest.
Okay.
There's a lot of times people will reach out and ask, hey, could you come and do whatever? And oftentimes it's in regards to speaking. Could you come in and speak? And what I will say is, for me, a person who has been speaking for over a decade, in addition to being a Black woman who isn't paid oftentimes for her services, and people want free services for us, I have to say no I don't want to say frequently, more often than I would like to, when people put me in a position where they ask, could you come and speak for free or minimally? And then I have to kindly say no. So that would be my experience with it on this platform in specifics.
Okay. And you found that you had to come up with the no here on LinkedIn platform versus other platforms, more particularly. Why is that?
I think there's a variety of variables in that. One, this is the platform that I'm on more frequently, I would say, and I post more on here. And also maybe it's the people that I'm connected to. I think there's a variety of reasons of why that might be. But I do know, Bobby, I'm not the only one, because if you look through feed, you will see a lot, or I've seen, especially Black women, a lot of people saying, I'm being asked for free or very heavily discounted services. And at the same time, the point that people even ask for that, knowing who you are, the services that you provide, leaves me standing in a lot of curiosity.
I appreciate that. And Melody, how about you? I mean, I'm curious if you have any sort of story or memory of, where you had an epiphany about this and turning things around.
Yeah, definitely. And I think relating to both of your stories around speaking, it comes up a lot. And I think what was an epiphany for me, especially earlier on, was that I had negotiating power in those situations where, instead of just saying no, I could ask for, okay, I would be able to do this under these conditions. I could use the footage for my reel, or you'll have a professional photographer there who will take photography that I can use on my website. You agree to offer me a testimonial if it goes well, or do a short video for my website. And so, at that point, it was thinking about compensation, quote unquote, in other ways that would benefit me. And of course, there's situations where you even grow out of that. And I love the idea of having like criteria around what you do and don't say yes to. It clarifies whether it's I take on this many pro bono gigs a year, or only this rate, only this part of the country. That's really helpful to know what you do and don't want to say yes to. But I think realizing that there were other options, it didn't have to be like, this is free, definitely a no, that I could look for more creative ways to get some sort of value out of it.
Yeah, and again, you guys can interrupt each other if you want and start sharing your own stuff. So if each you have something you want to add to it, by all means. I didn't get a chance to prep you before this, but thanks so much I want to thank you both for being here, taking the time. Because here's the thing, I asked you, and you could say no. I don't want to do the live stream, and I understood the irony of me asking this. And so maybe can you tell me why you said yes?
Okay.
Yeah, because versus no. I mean,
For me, I go off of many different factors. One is, most importantly for me right now in life, is bandwidth. Do I have the bandwidth to be able to show up radiating the most light and love of whatever I'm going to do? Two is a relationship with person. So a lot of those people, I didn't know you. So you're coming out of like nowhere. I have hardly had any interactions with you. And then you're asking that is kind of odd to me. So another reason is because I know you. So I said, and this is the reason why I was literally in meetings, coaching back to back on both sides of this, but because we have a relationship, and because I said, okay, I have the bandwidth this week, and because this is an important topic, because I'm all about this being tied to one's wellness and well-being. And if people can't say no, they are going to be even more depleted. And with the state of what we are just living through as humanity, I said this was a necessity in a way for me to come on for all those factors.
wow, I always love how thoughtful and articulate you are about these things. That's great. Features, it's wonderful. I mean, did it help that we met in person in Toronto when you came to town? I mean,
It did.
Okay.
It did.
We went for lunch. It was great.
Yeah, it was fun.
Melody, how about you? Like, what made you say yes?
It's so funny because it's similar but different. So, Bobby, I knew of you indirectly through, I think, Diana YK Chan
Right.
and some others in our sort of like LinkedIn community. And so, I actually love doing these things because I get to connect with new-ish people, right? Future, I didn't know you. And so now we're connected through this, and it's kind of a fun way to speed up the relationship, right?
Mhm.
While also creating something valuable for other people out here. So, that I think is a big part of it for me, is that this is relationship building for me, which is fun. And I love doing these things because this is like I don't mean this to sound like conceited, but like this is my zone of genius in the business. I love being the one who is creating content, being out there, doing these sorts of lives and videos and educating people. And so when I think about how am I spending my time each day, I want to make sure I'm doing more of the things that are in my zone of genius. And to me, this is growing the business, right? I'm reaching a new audience, Bobby. Like I'm sure a lot of people here have never encountered me before. And so it serves multiple purposes. And I think that's something I've taken on board more recently with saying yes or no to things is does this meet multiple goals for me? Right. I have a higher threshold of what I say yes to because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate that. And the other thing is that we're trying to talk about. And I see Jay's here. He said, I think one of the things we're afraid is by saying no, we have to explain ourselves to our high ups.
Mhm.
So totally, and
Mhm.
saying no to a boss. I know we're mostly focused on small business owners and side hustlers and things like that, but even saying no to a boss, it just triggered a memory in me, which was one of my first job ever outside of university and college was engineering, in mechanical engineering. I was working for Bombardier in structural design, and my boss would always come to me and ask me, "Do you want to come and do overtime on Saturday?" And I was young; I was 24 years old, 23, 24, and I got no plans. And hey, I like money, so then I said sure. So I kept saying sure, and I kept going every Saturday to work. And about 2, 3 months later, he asked me again, like he always does on Friday, and I was like, actually, I can't because, and I was like, because my mom is doing this thing, and I have to take her, and I was like, and I was like, I'm feeling so good. I was like, And he's like, okay, no problem, and he left just like that. And I was like, whoa, that was so easy.
Mhm.
I just I just said no, and I couldn't believe it. And then after that, I was more particular about how I said no and when I said no and things like that. What about you? Any other experiences of saying no and having a realization?
Yeah. I think particularly like when it comes to higher up. So my
Yeah,
my
the
book
higher
is called Managing Up for a reason because this is really difficult. The power dynamics
Mhm.
involved, even in your own business, right? If you have to say no to someone who may have a position of authority at an organization that's going to hire you, like there's still power dynamics there. And so when that happens, I talk in the book about this idea of pushback power, that we have to gauge where we sit in terms of our leverage of how often and how assertively we can say no, because the power dynamics matter there. And usually all of us, we're going to want to be more diplomatic. You're not going to say just no thanks, or like, you know not doing that. You want to be more tactful about it to preserve the relationship, right? And so, Bobby, I love what you did, which is one of the strategies in the book. It's this idea of the conditional yes, that I'm happy to do this time because I understand it's urgent, but I want to make sure we know that I can't always accommodate these types of requests to work over the weekend in the future. And so it's like I say yes now, but I'm setting the expectation that a boundary will come in the future. And you can do that in business too. Like if a client asks you to reschedule, hey, I know this is a personal emergency, happy to make it work for you now, but just keep in mind that we can't always do that in the future. So I ask that when you book an appointment, you stick to the time, right? Like that's a great example of that.
Mhm.
And of course, I didn't do a good job. I just said no, but I didn't actually set boundaries. Future. What about you talking to upper ups? I mean, upper people. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Whew. I think it's a fine gray line that many of us don't see because a lot of us, unfortunately, sit in a fear-based world. So we look at, I can't say no, and we come up with a plethora of reasons why the no can't come. It's going to impact me having an opportunity to maybe go to a higher position or move to a different team. Or what happens if I say no? How are they going to view me my reputation wise? So there's all these different layers that are tied into it, on top of where are you at in your own mind on that day. You could have had a bad morning because your kid's just not listening, or your kid said, you don't listen to me. Then you're going into a job and then literally feeling, okay, I have to listen and just serve. So I think it's a fine line. I think, who are they going to? You have to look at the relationship that you have with the person and how much have you already poured in and given. You also, I will keep telling people, you have to look at your bandwidth. So if somebody's coming to you and asking you, even if it's at your job and you just got there, and if your mom just died last week and you're coming into work now, and hypothetically speaking, they ask you, could you take on this extra thing? Are you the best person at that time to even do that? So I think those are the candid conversations we have to start having as human beings, of this is where I'm at with my state of being, if we truly care about the people and not the profits.
That's fantastic. And let me ask also now, you know, um, this is the Thought Leadership Branding Club that runs this live stream. So TLB Club, I mean, I think of thought leadership branding as, people need to build thought leadership, and that includes relationships, that includes a mindset, that includes confidence, that includes all these different things.
Mhm.
That's why, to me, the topic's relevant. And also, we serve small business owners, right? So it's a community of small business owners to help them grow, and part of mindset comes in all the time. But I wanted to kind of get your take on the thought leadership aspect. So if you're an expert, you're a thought leader, you're trying to build who you are, build your brand. Melanie, can you talk a bit about why it's so important to learn how to say no in a nice way?
Yeah, Bobby, I don't know if it's just me, but could you just repeat that? The sound cut out a little bit.
Oh, I was saying that, for people who are thought leaders or people who are
Yeah.
trying to build thought leadership, or even build their business, why is saying no so important?
Yeah. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, right? And that's what Future was getting at with your bandwidth, right? Every request is, yes, it's your time, but it's your mental, emotional energy. And I've certainly seen that with thought leadership, content creation. If I say yes to one thing, then I have to do sort of a calculus in my head of, well, what is that taking away from my time to write articles, create scripts for videos or programs?
Mhm.
Is that trade-off there? And so you really need to think about like what's going to be the highest leverage for me in the end. And and also I have developed over time more of this asset thinking where I would rather say yes to something that's going to pay dividends over time. Like if I create a podcast, right, that lives on and people can find that, they can listen to it for months, for years in the future, versus if I just have a one-on-one conversation with someone that may be enjoyable, but it just goes off into the ether and nobody else can enjoy it. And so thinking like that has also helped me weigh those decisions. Yeah.
What about you, Future? What do you think?
I have so many thoughts on this.
Let's dive deep. We got time.
One thing I want to catapult off of what you just said is what people have to remember is when you are giving all these yeses to everybody else out here, that's a no to yourself.
Yeah.
No, I don't have the time to go sit and meditate. No, I don't have the time to now take my kids to do this. No, I don't have the time to just sit and do nothing. So at some point, we have to literally say, what's my purpose on this planet? One, and two, how am I trying to do this and at what speed? Because then that is all going to tie into how many yeses you're giving out to other people in what week, in what season. So that would be my take on, okay, everybody has to be very mindful of what is your purpose, because you have to stay on what your purpose is. If I'm saying yes to all these other things that I might be talented and gifted in, but it's not my brand, it's not what I want to leave as an imprint on this earth, then why am I saying yes to it right now?
Yeah, I love that. And you both said the same thing that I similarly say all the time, which is basically that saying no to new opportunities and saying yes to current priorities, and that's such an important skill set to learn. Um, the other thing I want to mention too is that when you look at the things that you do, I mean, there's things that you do that are, and someone shows to me, which is some of the things you do are $10 tasks, and some of them are $100 tasks, some are $1,000 tasks. So, for example, $1,000 task for me would be to review someone's TEDx copy and script for their application, because I'm a TEDx coach and they're in part of my mastery program. $100 one might be something that is a little bit something I have to do, maybe content that I'm creating and I'm making the video. So that's that. And then the $10 ones are things I shouldn't be doing. Like, I get spam on emails. I delete that stuff and I click on this and all the different things. And so it's important to kind of understand where those things are and how you prioritize it. So, given all the different tasks and things are coming down your pipeline, how do you prioritize the yeses? And maybe I'll go to you first, Future, and then I'll go to Melody.
Yeah.
Prioritize my yeses.
Yeah.
Always, always, always for me, it is my bandwidth. Because there's weeks that, as you know, I'm traveling. If I am literally in a contract that I am working from day till night for 6 days, sorry, like that week, nobody's catching me, to be quite honest. And then I take a day or two to give myself a breath to get back. So it clearly for me depends on what is on my calendar, and not only me, because I'm a mom. So what is on my calendar for my kids? I could speak very transparently, and I say this all the time to people. October to March, we say there's Hell Week when you're doing rush fraternities and sororities. October to March for us in this household is hell months because both of my kids are in club sports and there's 4 days a week practice and games every weekend at multiple times. So there's a certain bandwidth that I have because one of the greatest roles that I have on a daily basis is mom. And I'm not going to say yes to all these other things to then impact the immediacy of the people who love me on a daily basis and who I'm trying to raise to be good human beings in this world. So those would be my highest things of how I would factor in what gets a yes and then what maybe gets on pause or gets an immediate no, but I love you still.
Melody, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat similar. It's trying to work backwards from my values and vision. So I like to think, what are my key priorities over the next 3, 6 months? Does this get me closer or further away to
Mm.
that goal? Like, of course, right now my book comes out in 2 weeks, and so all of my energy is dedicated. Does this get me closer or further away to getting this book in the hands of as many people as possible? And there are other seasons where it may be something else. It may be, spending time with family or taking care of myself or whatever it is. But that helps it be a clarifier for me because it's very easy to get into, oh, well, maybe this would be helpful. And you just having those, that just criteria for your decision making can make it so much clearer.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And again, we're having this discussion to talk about how to say no without being a jerk. And I kind of want to get into also some specific tactics that come up. So, and I'll share one little bit too, which is kind of the contrary to this, which is there's some people who say, this might be something people disagree with me on. There's some people say that I will never do anything for free. And as a speaker, having done it for 20 years, I don't believe in that philosophy. I think that there are causes that are just, that are important to you, that you should give back. You should give stuff for free. So, perfect example, my niece asked me to go speak at her high school, right? She's my niece. I love her. Like, I'm not gonna say go through my agent. Like, I'm not gonna, like, I'll go do it. It's fine. That's fine. It's so easy for me to show up and deliver a speech for the high school kids. That's fine. Oh, but it's a missed gig. I don't care. And then same thing with certain people that want to book appointments with me. Well, if the people I know and I've known for a while, that's different. It's just random people. That's different.
Yeah.
But for me, like I certainly, I speak at TEDx events. I've done 5 of them. I didn't get paid. I knew it was gonna be good for my brand. It's good for my purpose. So and there's causes like diabetes and body image and things like that that I'm very passionate about, and so I'll definitely speak to those things, right?
Mhm.
So I just want to make that point because I think it's really really important. But like let's look at tactics. And actually, I want to go to Melody for a second. I know you're promoting your book, so I want to give you a chance to promote it. But listen, people tell me to write a book all the time, and I keep saying no because it is a hell of a lot of time, man. And I have written a book. I wrote a book years ago, How to Network Anytime, Anywhere with Anyone, because I would need to have a book as a speaker. And then eventually I did a GMAT book, which was thousands of hours of my time. But I thought it was a good opportunity. It didn't work out as well as I thought it would. Can you tell me when to say yes and when to say no to a book and how?
Oh goodness. Yeah, this is a big question. Also, are we talking about traditionally published or self-published? Because
That's a great question. So
Yeah.
I've done both. I've done one self-published, one traditional published, and I said
Yes.
yes to both. And now I say almost no to everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Someone gave me advice early on was that only say yes to the book if you are going to feel comfortable talking about this topic for the next 5, 10 years, if not your entire career,
Mm.
because you're like getting married to this topic. And like you were saying, it is thousands of hours. I think with this book, I wrote 3 full drafts. I have hundreds of thousands of words that were just on the cutting room floor. And so to write a book, for me, I approach books not as a moneymaker in and of themselves, but as a platform builder to something else. So number one, is this a topic I want to be known for, right? And I want to be on stages speaking about, that I want people coming to me for, that I want to create programs around. Number two is this a topic that I feel like I have conviction around, that I have a different perspective that I can bring to this, or some sort of valuable angle? And then, I think number three is like, is this the legacy I want to leave too? Will I be proud to have my name on this book? But you do have to, it is a lot of time. And so you do have to be willing to not make sacrifices, but make changes in terms of, I had to really downshift some of my direct client work in order to be able to make time for the book. And I personally really enjoy the process of writing and that creation process. Some people hate it. And, you also have to think about, going back to the zone of genius idea, where is your energy best spent in the business? That doesn't mean if you don't like writing, you can't write a book, right? You could always narrate it. And I mean, we have tons of AI now that could help you take some of your spoken and put it into a book format. You could work with a coach. So you can get creative about finding a way that makes it work for you. But those are some of the things that I would consider. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about tactics. What are some tactics or strategies you're using when it comes to running your business, running your life, and then being able to say no to things? And I'll give you an example of something that I have. I have copy that I've created in a document, and it's also on my notes on my phone, that I can easily copy and paste and put it on stuff when people, so for example, when someone says, "Hey, Bobby, can I pick your brain?" Okay, well, here's my standard copy, and then I put it in there.
Yep.
And now it depends who it is. Like if my best friend wants to pick my brain, I'll say, "Yeah, let's go grab dinner, and I'll give you all the advice I want because you're my friend. I love you."
Yep.
But if it's someone random person, I have copy for that, and I love having. I have a document of different scenarios that come up, speaking, coffees, pick your brain, all the different things. To me, that's something I've been using for a long time, and I find it very, very helpful as part of the strategy. Because when you have it, the first time it's hard to use. You're like, "Oh, okay, let's see if this works. I feel that thing." And then by the 10th or 100th time, I'm like, "Yeah, boom, paste, and it's very easy for me to do that. So I'm curious about any sort of strategy or tactics you're using. So, Future, let's start with you.
I think one strategy that I use and have since I've been on this platform is, if you're asking me a question, I love writing and I have published pieces, but voice notes are what is essential for me. And that could go very fast for me to give you an answer or direction of what you need. So for me, I do have the copy and paste for some things, but I'll just do a voice note. That's what works best for
Right. The voice notes are great. Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for this. And listen, I'm going to have to pass them for now, but all the best, love, light, and blessings. And that's it, eh? That's good. That's pretty good. Okay. How about you, Melody?
I love that. And like, similar to both of you, I think, there's times where you get a lot of the same questions, like, "Oh, how would you handle this?" Today, I had a message in my inbox about, "Do you have anything on executive presence and communication?" And so, uh, again, creating those assets. I have blog posts, I have podcasts that I could say, "Hey, this is a great place to start." And that's a great way to be able to say no. And in the book, I call that the referral, which is, can you refer someone to some sort of a document and ask that you have another person or a resource that would be useful? Because then you're being helpful. You're helping them reach their goal while also protecting your time.
Yeah, no, that's great. And again, I'm looking for more strategies and tactics. So if you have any other stuff that you want to share, or some sort of ideas, or maybe a story, I mean, I'm going to share another story about, I have lots of stories around saying no. So just today, I got an email from somebody, and they said they wanted to, they love. I'm actually going to read it to you. So I'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's in my email, and they said, "Bobby, I love your stuff. I'm a fan of your work. I admire you. Such a big supporter of African entrepreneurs and small business owners." True, that's true. That's why TLB Club exists. You're making a real difference in the world. Actually, my whole team and I love what you're up to. I think more people can hear your message. I'd like to help with that any way I can. I know you must be busy, but And then they, they wanted me to help them with, one of those virtual summits, right? And I've done a few of them in the first few years of my life, but the virtual summit where they make you have to send 3 emails to your email list, and
Mhm.
they, you record this thing for them, and it's hopefully going to lead to business. I can tell you that from my experience that it's rarely led to anything for me. And this idea of me having sent 3 emails over a period of 1 month to my list, which I hold very precious to me,
Mhm.
is is a lot. So they asked me that, and I just said, appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to pass. And I kept in my inbox because normally I would delete it, but I wanted to share with you guys today because I thought it'd be kind of fun to
Yeah.
share. So I think that and the requests come from all sorts of
Mhm.
places, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, and I think that what's the heart like? I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is there are times where it's really hard.
Mhm.
So, the hard like what would you say is the hardest types of requests to say no to? I know you're thinking. Okay, as you think, I'll give you one. And so I think that it's hard live in person. So
Mm.
when they're there in person with you at an event, and they just saw you speak, Bobby, that was beautiful. That was so amazing. Oh my God, I'm really inspired by you. And listen, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with this thing, and I'm wondering if you can help me. And that's hard. It's hard to say no to some of those things because people are there, they see they appreciate you, they want your help, and saying no to certain requests is I find very, very difficult. So that's just one example. What about you guys?
Yeah. I think the live component is such a good one because you feel put on the spot,
Yeah.
right? And in those moments, what I like to do is two things. Put it back in the other person's court to follow up with you because, for better or worse, many times people will not follow through, right? And so if you say, "Hey, thanks so much, really appreciate your interest in that. Would you mind emailing me about that or message me on LinkedIn afterwards?" And that way, it's back. The responsibility is back in their court. It's no longer something like you have to take on. And even just deferring, like that's another one of the strategies I talk about in the book. We have the referral, there's the deferral. Like, again, hey, thanks so much. Appreciate you thinking of me. I can't give you a yes or a no on the spot, but let me check my calendar. I can check on my bandwidth and I can get back to you about that. And at least you have some of those phrases in your back pocket that allow you to buy yourself some time to actually think about, is this something I want to say yes to, instead of just feeling pressured on the spot to give an automatic, accommodation.
Mhm. Mhm.
What about you, future? What do you think?
Okay, I do think I will hold space for the in person. I like what this person also said over here. The request comes from your manager or people that
Yeah.
you answer to at your jobs, because that is. I would say for me, though, it is hardest to say no to the people that I love the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and that's a good segue into something about priority setting. So one of the things I want to share with you guys is every year I share a word for the year, and this year my word is priorities.
Hmm.
And the reason why I've chosen the word is because last year was very difficult. My entire family became neurodivergent. So basically, my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD, and then next thing you know, my wife and I decided to get diagnosed too, and we both passed the test of being ADHD. And then my son was diagnosed with autism. So we're now a fully neurodivergent family. And then secondly, my mom is declining and aging, and so trying to help her with that. I had to realize, okay, I got to spend time with this, um, and my family said, Bob, you got to step up more because I live further away than everybody else. And I was like, yeah, okay, because it's an hour away, and but now like I'm stepping up and I visit my mom every Thursday, and and so now I'm very mindful of my time. I've had to start saying no to things I'm currently doing. So another hard thing to say no to is something you're currently doing and you love,
Mm, yeah.
Mhm.
and to say no to it. So, example of that is that I do a lot of audio rooms, and I was telling Melody earlier today before we started talking that I do one audio room per week, but actually technically I do two. But the second one is on Tuesdays and one's on Thursdays. And the one on Tuesdays, I basically said, I can no longer host. Like I'll show up. I can't commit to being there the whole time,
Yeah.
but I'm going to try to pop in for 15 minutes, deliver some, excellence, and then promote TLB Club, and I'll leave. Although for the most part, I've been staying a little bit longer for most of them. But the point is that saying no to, I love doing them. Saying no to the things you love doing, that's a very, very hard thing to do.
Yeah. So true. Sunk cost comes into play, right? Like once you commit to doing something, it's like, well, I've done it for this long. It's so hard to say no after you've already said yes. And I know I have definitely gotten myself in that situation where I agreed to do something and then on revisiting it, I realized, oh, I should not have taken it on. And sometimes I've had to pull out of it. And in that case, you do, right? I know we try not to over apologize, but be upfront about, hey,
Yeah.
I thought that I would, when I committed to this, I fully thought that I would have the bandwidth for this. And now circumstances have changed. And what I love is you came to them with a solution, right? You weren't just like, I'm not doing this anymore. Bye, everyone. It was, you came to them with like, yes, I need to transition out of it. So here's what I can do, right? And that sort of compromise can make it a bit more palatable for people. But I think that's really hard. Like, how do you pull out of a request? Yeah.
What do you think, Future? I mean, your thoughts on that?
On the pulling out of a request?
Yeah, I think that's a really good segue to something, another type of no, like something you started, now you have to eventually say no to it.
I think it's a testament to the relationship. Okay. And to your boundaries too, which I think people need to uphold. So I can't, and I've been there, right? So I don't want anybody to be like, but I do it all the time. I did do it all the time too. I used to say yes so much that I left myself in a spot where my mental health wasn't good.
Right.
So once you get to a spot personally for me, that is why people will compliment me on my boundaries. They're like, wow, you like hold really firm boundaries. Yes, I do. Because when you've been at a place where you are at your lowest in point in life, you will refuse to go back there again. And I think for me, if that means I thought I could, like you said, I could do it and things in life change, and permanence is a guarantee on this planet. So if things now have changed a week, 5 weeks later, and I no longer can do it, I would hope that that other human being would appreciate me being transparent and saying, I'm going to back out of it so that I'm not giving you not the 110% that any person would deserve, in my opinion, when you enter into an agreement.
And I think that no, I think that's great. And the other thing I'm curious about too is this idea of I guess not being a jerk. So how do we not be a jerk? Let's define that. There are ways to be jerks, and there are ways to be maybe middle, and then and not be a jerk. So Melody, can you talk about like how do we not be a jerk when we're doing this?
Yeah, there's a difference between being assertive and aggressive, right? Assertive is I value both myself and you. Aggressive is I value myself and I don't value you. And
Right.
so aggressive maybe you are just no, screw off. Right? You're mean, you're cutting, you make someone feel badly, like you blame and shame them for even asking you that. Whereas assertive is it is kind, it's not necessarily nice, right? Nice starts to get into more passive territory of, well, maybe I don't know, and then you pull out later. Assertive is be like I was saying some of those scripts before, they all started with like, thank you for considering me, thank you so much for thinking of me. And I also love phrases like, I hope you understand, I'm really overstretched right now and this isn't something I can commit to. Or one of my favorite phrases is, it would be out of integrity for me to agree to this knowing I wouldn't have the energy to give to it. So that's honoring myself, but it's also showing the other person, hey, I care about you and I care about you getting a good result and outcome here. And that's why I can't commit to this. It's not that I don't like you or I think this is a dumb idea or a stupid request. It's more that I couldn't give to it what it deserves.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Future?
Okay, so here's what I will add into this context. I want to focus on the jerk piece, because here's the reality. Even when people come in so much love and sharing, I'm sorry, I can't, there are times that depending on where that person is at right now, they may still see you or feel that you are a jerk.
Yeah.
So anytime you're not giving people what they want because they're coming to you because they're expecting or hoping for the yes, anytime somebody is saying just no, whether it's in the most loving way or whether it's in a jerking way, people may still look at you as a jerk because they didn't get what they wanted when they came to ask. That's one piece. The second piece that I would say of this is always standing true to who you are. And you can't do that with showing up with other people to give them the no in love if you have no idea who you are. It is really hard for people to believe you aren't coming off as a jerk if you're not jerkish on an everyday basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think my take on this is, I'm just always, I consider myself a heart-based value leader. Everything's with heart, everything's with love, and so I see no reason to say something. Hey, why you ask me this? Get out of here! Like I would never do that. I would say, hey, thank you so much, gratitude, and then I will pass on this. And I definitely say I will pass on this. Don't say I will pass on this for now because they're going to come back at you 3 months later. So I will pass on this. Wishing you all the best. And then I think your idea about the voice notes, I think is great. That's a great way to share the voice, and so it's a real person responding. I think that's really good. So there's definitely things you can do, and this leads to my next question, which is around clients. So let's say you have a client opportunity and they want to hire you and they want to give you money, give me money, lots of money. I like money. How do you say no to that? Yeah, like when would you say no, and how do you say no? I know I'm giving you tough questions here. I apologize for putting you on the spot, but yeah, there's some great stuff here. So
Yeah, when do you say no to a client? I think for me, there are, how do I say it? I'm trying to think of the most diplomatic way to say this, that I try to be selective with who I work with, because anyone who you're working with, right? It's a commitment of your time, your energy. Again, you're saying yes to them, which means you're saying no to something else. And so if I can tell in the process that this is not someone who is going to be values aligned with me, or if I could tell there's someone who is not going to honor their own commitments, maybe they're not following through, they're not consistent, they ask for one thing and then it's changing the next day. Sometimes the money is not worth it. Frank, like there has to be that sort of tax, that difficulty tax has to be factored into it. And yeah, I guess that's how I think about it. Is sometimes I would not even want to take their money knowing that. So yeah, Future, I don't know. How about you? Yeah.
Okay, yes, I'd say yes to all of those things, and I think it is what is on my calendar, right? Like, do I have the space and the time to even do what the ask is of the organization?
Yeah.
One, and two, where are they standing too? Is this something I'm all about joy? So is this a partner that literally is pouring into my joy, or are they quite honestly depleting me of my energy in life? Because I don't think we should be partnering with those people either.
okay, and Future, I know you have to get going soon. So can you just share a bit about yourself and or how can we follow you? How can we promote you? How can we support you? How can we find ways to say yes to you?
Okay. You could find me I'm on all the platforms pretty much. I would say LinkedIn and TikTok are my bigger ones that I am on. I'm on Instagram. I would love if anybody wants to follow me. If you have questions in regards to social emotional leadership, EQ, mental health and well-being, or just optimizing you as a human being, I would say please reach out. I have several services that I can partner with people on. And I just want humanity to, one, be well, most importantly, and two, work at their full optimization levels, which many of us, for many different reasons, are not doing at the current time.
Thanks, Future, for coming by, and I want to keep going with me and Melody because we got another 8 to 9 minutes. But
Okay.
make sure you follow her and check out what Future Keen is up to. She's awesome. So
Thanks, Bobby. I appreciate you.
thank you
Nice
so
to
much.
meet you.
Yes, you
Okay,
too.
bye.
Bye.
So I want to share a story about the dangers of not saying no, and this is actually with clients. So I had a client in one of my programs, and um, person I was working with was hesitant to bring them in because they said they were a little bit odd. And I said, no, it's a client. They're going to pay. Like, this is great. And then it turned out pretty bad because they were so toxic and so needy that not only did they take away from the other participants, but what ended up happening was uh, that person intoxicated 3 other people, and all 4 of them left
Mm,
in this negative huff of negative vortex energy. I was like, holy cow, how'd that happen? Like, I couldn't
mm,
believe, and I was too shy to say no. It's not working out. You're not a fit. And another example is there's this whole example of hire slowly, fire
I
quickly.
was just gonna say that. Yeah.
And I had a team member for one of the projects, things I was working on, and I tried for 6 months to align to him and to have these meetings to make sure he felt needed and supported, blah blah blah. And I realized that it just wasn't working. I should have just said, maybe we should part ways, and I didn't
mm,
because it was a friend, someone I cared about, and I really thought, I valued his opinion, I valued what he brought to the table. And eventually, 6 months later, he left, and I was like, oh man, like I could have. I felt immobilized. I didn't move for a night. I didn't move
mm,
for 6 months on any projects with the organization. I felt really bad about that. So,
Mm,
yeah, can you talk about that, Melody? Like the impact of
yeah.
not being able to say no.
Yeah. Well, also what stands out to me in both of those situations is you had a feeling in your gut, right?
Yeah,
That or
right.
even your colleague in the case with the
Yeah,
client, like had a feeling in your gut that we sort of brush off with rationalization, like, oh, it'll be fine, or oh, there's the money here, but there's like that little inkling deep down. And we need to listen to that. My first book is called Trust Yourself for that reason. Because many times we squelch down that intuition about it and it comes back to bite us. And you said the hire slow, fire fast. And I think that's really true when choosing who you work with and having stages in how you work together, whether it's like they fill out an application or you have a consultation call or you do a test project together right before committing to working together for a year so that there's that feeling out period. You can understand the person a bit more and that that that's where you could pick up some of those signals about is this someone I want to work with or not. And what's interesting is that at the end of the day, especially with that team member you had, it this happens all the time, and I do that too, where I will not have the difficult conversation, but the kinder thing would have been to bring up my feedback earlier, right? And maybe
right.
release that person so they could find a role that's a better fit for them. I could too. And so sometimes we think we're being kind when in actuality we're hurting both people involved by not addressing it, not saying the hard thing. And even just pointing out with that person like, "Hey, is this working for you? I'm getting the impression that maybe we're not moving as fast as we could be," right? And just putting it out on the table and seeing where it goes so much better than just ignoring it and it blowing up later.
I find the hardest thing to say no to actually is my kids. So they're teenagers, right? And so when my daughter wants to spit and go past the bedtime with their phone or with their laptop, and I'm like, and And she has a lot of big feelings, and so sometimes me and my wife are like too scared to say no or set those boundaries. My God, that is like the hardest thing in the world as a parent to do that.
Mhm.
I'm terrified of them. I'm scared of them. Like they are, they're emotionally exhausting, and so I just realized that's another thing I have trouble saying no to, because someone said before, this is business, family, life, everything. And
Yep.
so even in my personal life, saying no to my kids sometimes is really, really hard.
And also because, well, number one, teenagers are very persuasive. So let's like
Yes.
acknowledge that. Um, but also because those people, like the people closest to us, know how to push our buttons, right?
Yeah.
They know, like, oh, if I say this, they'll feel bad, or
Right.
right. And so that it can be, yeah. Is there anything that you have found does work with your kids? I don't have kids yet, but I have like
Well,
one
what I
idea.
what what I've learned is that you empathize with what they're feeling, and you say no, and then if they're mad for a long time, that you do. So, for example, with my daughter, we don't allow them to have my kids to have smartphones. So
Mhm.
that and I'm one of the 0.1% of parents doing this, but because I know the data is devastating.
Yeah.
So they're 16 and 14, but one time we bought her a phone that had smartphone capabilities, and she had it for a month. We didn't know, and we took it away, and daggers, 5 days of not talking to us. But it took me 3 weeks to convince my wife and I to say, "We need to take this thing away from her, because it's not fair to her brother who has a flip phone, and she has this thing that has all these capabilities."
Mhm.
So it's that, empathize, and then just be firm, and they'll be mad, but they'll get over it.
Yeah.
Same with clients too. Like, I mean, I have issue with clients too, where it's like you have to everything's a no thing. There's certain things we have to say no to. So another example I'll give you is in TLB Club. TLB Club is my membership community, and they often send me a lot
Mhm.
of like private messages. But the thing is, look, it's a membership community. If you could afford the high end stuff, you'd get my one-on-one attention.
Mm.
But I would say just put it in the community group, ask the question for everybody. We'll all be there. And I have to, and I feel bad because it's just people that I know and love, and I really want to, help them. But I have to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
see this.
same
I see
thing.
that. By the way, there's a question. I want to make sure we get this question.
Sure.
If you were asked to come back to work in person completely, would you say no? And how did you reason with your managers?
So, yeah, there's a lot of nuance to this.
Yes.
Um, I actually talk about this in the book because you also have to consider like what's the context you're operating in, like what you have to have some situational awareness. If you're in a company where there's a mandate, right, you have no leverage there. There's a mandate, everyone is doing it. And so you're not going to have a lot of leverage to say no or negotiate around coming back or not. But if it's a little more unclear, in all situations you need to think about how do I frame my boundaries so that it seems in service, or I show how it is actually in service of the other person. So if I am permitted to work from home, that means I cut out the 1 hour commute I have each way, and that's time I can dedicate to getting ahead on these really important projects, right? But you have to make that case for someone. And even if you're just bringing it up, one of the questions I have in the book about asking for like benefits like this is asking, is there any precedent? Is there any precedent for making exceptions to this policy? Because that, again, it allows you to feel out the situation. This even goes, Bobby, with like if you are doing speaking or working with a client and they say, well, we don't, I hear oftentimes, well, we don't pay speakers, right? Is there any precedent where you have looked at other compensation for speakers? And I've asked that, and they go, oh, actually, we could buy 100 of your books. Okay, great. So that can be a really magical question.
There's three things I would do. Number one, focus on the relationship with your manager and
Yeah.
talk about that. Number two, focus on the company values, because if they value things like accessibility, productivity, things like that,
Yep.
you can speak to those things. And number three, focus on profitability, because if you're going to be working from home, you can be more profitable for the company. So and help grow. So these are things that will get their attention. Now
Yep.
we're kind of at the end here, guys, and I really want to let's go to Melody. Please share a bit about how we can support you, follow you, and what we can say yes to for you.
Yeah, well, very relevant to this conversation. I actually have free scripts for saying no. And particularly, some of you were asking, like, how do I say no to higher authorities or my manager? That's going to be really useful for you. So it's Melody Wilding /say no. And I'll put the link in the live stream after this. But you can also check out my book, Managing Up, How to Get What You Need from the People in Charge. It comes out in less than 2 weeks from today. So wherever books are sold or at managingup.com.
Awesome. And this is brought to you by the TLB Club, Thought Leaders Brand Club. The QR code is there. Check it out. We have weekly meetings, weekly Zoom calls with the guest expert speakers. Maybe I can convince Melly to come for one of them as well. And you can click the QR code there. I'm also doing my regular TEDx talks, my 5-day TEDx challenge every 2 months. So you can click on that QR code if you want to learn more about it. But thank you so much for being here, guys. Thanks everyone for coming by. And we'll see you guys soon. Take care.